They laughed at the delivery lady. But when she addressed them by rank and code, silence fell. One recruit looked up her name and gasped. She was the first to command this unit. Lunch turned into a lesson they'd never forget. The mess hall at Fort Benning buzzed with its usual afternoon energy as young recruits grabbed quick meals between training sessions. The atmosphere was casual and loud, filled with conversations about upcoming exercises, complaints about drill sergeants, and the general camaraderie that develops among soldiers learning their trade together. Nobody paid particular attention to the middle-aged woman who entered through the service entrance carrying several thermal bags, her civilian clothes and quiet demeanor marking her as just another delivery person bringing food to supplement the military dining facility. The recruits barely glanced up as she moved through the dining area, setting up containers of what appeared to be homemade Mexican food on a serving table near the back of the hall. To them, she was invisible, just another civilian contractor or volunteer providing additional meal options that broke the monotony of standard military fare. Her presence was unremarkable, her purpose apparent, her identity completely unknown to the young soldiers who continued their conversations without acknowledging her work. But Maria Elena Vasquez carried credentials that would have stunned every person in that mess hall if they had known her background. At 55, she appeared to be exactly what she seemed, a local woman providing food service to military personnel, perhaps the wife or mother of someone connected to the base. Her modest appearance and quiet efficiency suggested nothing more than civilian support for military dining services. Welcome to Silent Salute. Before we continue this incredible story, tell us in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We're growing every day, and I sincerely thank you for being a part of it. The 3rd Training Battalion had been Maria's first command assignment 25 years earlier, when she had been Captain Vasquez, one of the first female officers to lead a training unit at Fort Benning. Her assignment had been controversial at the time, with many questioning whether a woman could effectively train young soldiers and maintain the discipline and standards that military training required. But Maria had not only succeeded in her command, she had revolutionized how the battalion approached recruit training, implementing innovations that improved both effectiveness and morale while maintaining the highest standards of military preparation. Her leadership had been studied and emulated throughout the training command, and her methods had influenced how the Army trained soldiers for decades after her assignment ended. Her decision to visit the mess hall was motivated by simple curiosity about how the unit was performing under current leadership, combined with nostalgia for a period of her military career that had been particularly meaningful. She had started a small catering business after retiring from the Army, and providing food to military facilities had become both livelihood and way of maintaining connection to military communities that had defined her adult life. The recruits' casual dismissal of her presence was understandable given their focus on their own training and development, but it also reflected broader patterns of how military achievements by women were often overlooked or forgotten. Maria's pioneering role in military training had been significant at the time, but had gradually faded from institutional memory as new personnel rotated through assignments. The transformation began when one recruit approached the serving table and made a dismissive comment about lunch ladies trying to make extra money off soldiers. His tone was casual but disrespectful, reflecting the kind of attitude that young soldiers sometimes develop toward civilian personnel they perceived as less important than military staff. Maria's response was immediate and precise, delivered with the kind of authority that only came from years of military command experience. She addressed the recruit by his visible rank, corrected his posture with a single glance, and spoke to him using military terminology and protocols that demonstrated knowledge far beyond what any civilian food service provider would possess. The effect was immediate and electric. The recruit snapped to attention automatically, responding to command presence that he recognized even if he didn't understand its source. Other soldiers near the serving table stopped their conversations and turned to observe what was happening, sensing that something significant was occurring even if they couldn't immediately identify what had changed. Maria continued setting up her food service while maintaining the command bearing that had marked her military career, her movements efficient and purposeful in ways that suggested military training rather than civilian food preparation. The recruits began to notice details they had initially overlooked: her posture, her awareness of her surroundings, her familiarity with military protocols and terminology. The questions began tentatively, with one recruit asking if she had military experience. Maria's response was modest but revealing, acknowledging Army service without providing details that would immediately reveal the significance of her background. But her knowledge of military procedures and training protocols became increasingly evident as the conversation continued. The breakthrough came when Maria casually mentioned having served with the 3rd Training Battalion, using specific details about base layout and training procedures that only someone with intimate knowledge of the unit could possess. The recruits began to realize that their lunch lady had connections to their own training unit that went far beyond food service. Private Johnson, who had been among the most dismissive of Maria's presence, pulled out his phone and began searching for information about the 3rd Training Battalion's history. What he discovered made him stop mid-search and stare at Maria with new understanding. The first female commander of their unit had been Captain Maria Vasquez, and the woman serving lunch bore an unmistakable resemblance to the officer in the historical photographs. The realization spread through the mess hall like wildfire as recruits shared Johnson's discovery and began approaching Maria with new respect and curiosity. The woman they had dismissed as just a delivery lady was actually a pioneering military officer whose innovations had shaped the very training they were receiving at that moment. Maria's acknowledgement of her identity was characteristically modest, emphasizing the collective achievements of the soldiers she had led rather than her own pioneering role as the first woman to command a training battalion. But the recruits' questions revealed their growing understanding of the historical significance of what she had accomplished and how it had influenced their own military experience. The impromptu education session that followed provided the recruits with insights into military history and leadership that no classroom instruction could offer. Maria shared stories about the challenges and successes of implementing new training methods, the importance of maintaining standards while adapting to changing military requirements, and the personal satisfaction that came from watching young soldiers develop into effective military personnel. Her presence in the mess hall had been intended as simple food service, but it became an unexpected opportunity for leadership education that connected current recruits to their unit's history while demonstrating how innovation and excellence could be achieved regardless of the obstacles or prejudices that might initially exist. The respect that Maria received from the recruits was immediate and profound, reflecting their understanding that they were in the presence of someone whose military achievements had exceeded their own aspirations while paving the way for opportunities they now took for granted. Her example demonstrated how leadership could transcend traditional boundaries when it was based on competence and dedication. The dining hall atmosphere was completely transformed as word spread about Maria's identity and background. Conversations shifted from casual military topics to serious discussions about leadership, innovation, and the evolution of military training. The recruits began asking detailed questions about her command experience and the lessons she had learned during her military career. Military training instructors who learned about Maria's presence approached to pay their respects and express appreciation for innovations that continued to influence their teaching methods. Her techniques for maintaining discipline while building confidence had become standard practices that enhanced both individual development and unit effectiveness. The base commander, informed about Maria's visit, arranged to meet with her personally to express institutional appreciation for her contributions to military training and to learn about her observations of current training methods. Her insights as someone who had both commanded the unit and observed its evolution over decades provided valuable perspective on training effectiveness. The food that Maria had brought became secondary to the education she provided, though the recruits appreciated both the meal and the opportunity to learn from someone whose military experience represented the highest levels of achievement and innovation. Her willingness to share knowledge and experiences enhanced their understanding of military tradition and excellence. Media coverage of Maria's unexpected recognition focused on themes of hidden achievement and the importance of recognizing military pioneers whose contributions might be overlooked as time passed. Her story demonstrated how significant military innovations could be forgotten if institutions didn't maintain awareness of their historical development. The catering business that Maria operated gained new clients as word spread about her military background and commitment to serving military communities. Her food service became sought after not just for quality, but for the connection it provided to authentic military experience and values. Educational programs at Fort Benning began incorporating Maria's story into discussions about military innovation and leadership development, using her example to demonstrate how individual excellence could influence institutional practices while paving the way for future opportunities. The 3rd Training Battalion established permanent recognition of Maria's contributions, including displays that educated current personnel about her pioneering role and the innovations she had implemented. Her example became part of unit tradition that connected current training methods to their historical development. Veterans organizations invited Maria to speak at events celebrating military women's achievements, understanding that her story provided inspiration while demonstrating how barriers could be overcome through competence and dedication. Her presentations emphasized collective achievement while acknowledging individual responsibility for excellence. Military leadership courses incorporated Maria's command techniques into curricula about effective training methods and innovation in military education. Her approaches to maintaining standards while building confidence became standard examples of how leadership could enhance both individual development and institutional effectiveness. The psychological research studying military leadership included Maria's case in analyses of how diverse perspectives could enhance military effectiveness, understanding that her innovations had improved training outcomes while demonstrating the value of inclusive leadership approaches. International military education programs featured Maria's techniques as examples of how training methods could be adapted and improved while maintaining core military values and standards. Her innovations had influenced not just American military training, but international approaches to military education and leadership development. The mentorship programs for military women included Maria's story as an example of how pioneering achievements could create opportunities for future generations while demonstrating that excellence was recognized regardless of gender when it was clearly demonstrated through results and dedication. Years later, Maria's unexpected recognition in the mess hall was remembered as a moment that had connected current military personnel to their institutional history while demonstrating how achievement could be hidden in plain sight until circumstances revealed its significance. The recruits who had initially dismissed her as just a delivery lady graduated with enhanced understanding of military history and leadership, carrying forward appreciation for the innovations and sacrifices that had shaped their training and created opportunities they might otherwise have taken for granted. Sometimes the most accomplished person in the room is the one serving lunch rather than eating it. Sometimes revolutionary leadership comes quietly through the service entrance, carrying thermal bags instead of wearing uniforms. Sometimes the greatest lessons come from those we initially overlook. Maria Elena Vasquez had simply wanted to provide good food to young soldiers while maintaining connection to military communities that had defined her career and values. When her identity was discovered by recruits she had once commanded indirectly through her innovations, she learned that true leadership never really ends. It just takes different forms while continuing to serve others. The long-term impact of Maria's unexpected recognition at Fort Benning extended far beyond that single afternoon in the mess hall, influencing how the base approached veteran engagement and historical awareness. Her experience became a catalyst for institutional changes that enhanced recognition of military pioneers whose contributions might otherwise be forgotten as personnel rotated through assignments. Military training programs began incorporating Maria's story into leadership development curricula, using her example to demonstrate how innovation and excellence could overcome institutional resistance while establishing new standards that enhanced military effectiveness. Her techniques for balancing discipline with encouragement became standard examples taught throughout military education systems. The catering business that Maria operated expanded significantly as word spread about her military background and commitment to serving military communities. Her food service became sought after not just for quality, but for the authentic connection it provided to military experience and values, attracting clients who appreciated both her culinary skills and her understanding of military culture. Congressional testimony about military women's achievements included references to Maria's pioneering role in training command, using her experience to demonstrate how inclusive leadership policies had enhanced military effectiveness while creating opportunities for qualified personnel regardless of gender. Her success became evidence supporting continued expansion of military opportunities. International military training conferences featured presentations about Maria's innovations in recruit development, understanding that her methods had influenced not just American military training, but global approaches to military education and leadership development. Her techniques were studied and adapted by military organizations worldwide. The psychological research studying military leadership effectiveness incorporated Maria's command techniques into analyses of how diverse leadership styles could enhance unit performance, understanding that her approaches had improved both individual development and collective achievement while maintaining the highest military standards. Educational institutions studying military history began including Maria's story in coursework about the evolution of military training and the contributions of women to military effectiveness, using her example to demonstrate how individual excellence could influence institutional practices while paving the way for future opportunities. The mentorship programs for military women expanded based on lessons learned from Maria's experience, understanding that her story provided inspiration while demonstrating practical approaches to overcoming barriers and achieving excellence in traditionally male-dominated military specialties and leadership positions. Veterans organizations invited Maria to serve on advisory committees about military education and training effectiveness, recognizing that her unique perspective as both pioneer and practitioner provided valuable insights into how military institutions could continue evolving while maintaining core values and standards. The 3rd Training Battalion established annual recognition ceremonies honoring Maria's contributions to military training, creating permanent institutional memory that ensured future personnel would understand the innovations and sacrifices that had shaped their training methods and created opportunities they might otherwise take for granted. Military museums and historical societies requested artifacts and documentation from Maria's command experience, understanding that her innovations represented significant developments in military training that deserved preservation and study by future generations of military leaders and historians. The base dining facilities where Maria had been initially dismissed as just a delivery lady became sites of enhanced respect for civilian contractors and support personnel, with staff and military personnel gaining new appreciation for the diverse backgrounds and experiences that civilian workers might bring to military communities. Family support programs for military personnel incorporated Maria's story into discussions about career transition and maintaining connection to military values after retirement, demonstrating how former military personnel could continue serving while adapting their skills and experience to civilian careers that supported military communities. The academic research studying military innovation included Maria's training methods in analyses of how individual leadership could influence institutional change, understanding that her approaches had created lasting improvements in military education that continued benefiting personnel decades after her original command assignment. International women's military organizations featured Maria's achievements in conferences about gender integration and military effectiveness, using her example to demonstrate how qualified women could excel in military leadership while contributing innovations that enhanced overall military capability and performance. The psychological counseling programs for military families included Maria's story in discussions about recognizing and celebrating family military achievements, helping relatives understand how military service could influence civilian careers while maintaining connections to military values and communities. Military recruiting programs began highlighting Maria's story as an example of the leadership opportunities available to women in military service, demonstrating how military careers could provide both immediate responsibility and long-term influence that extended far beyond active duty service periods. The strategic communication programs for military public affairs incorporated Maria's experience into training about presenting military women's achievements to civilian audiences, understanding that her story provided effective demonstration of how military service could develop leadership capabilities while contributing to broader social progress. Corporate leadership development programs studying military management techniques included Maria's training innovations in coursework about effective leadership under pressure, understanding that her methods for maintaining standards while building confidence had applications in civilian management and organizational development contexts. The Veterans Administration enhanced its programs for female veterans based on lessons learned from Maria's experience, understanding that women's military service often included pioneering achievements that deserved recognition and could provide inspiration for other veterans transitioning to civilian careers. Military family heritage programs incorporated Maria's story into educational materials about preserving and sharing family military histories, demonstrating how individual achievements could inspire future generations while contributing to broader understanding of military service and sacrifice. The research studying military career transition included Maria's catering business as an example of how military skills and experience could be adapted to civilian entrepreneurship while maintaining service to military communities, providing practical guidance for veterans seeking meaningful post-military careers. Educational programs for military children featured Maria's story as an example of how military service could provide opportunities for achievement and leadership regardless of gender, demonstrating how military values could be lived throughout lifetime careers that evolved while maintaining core commitments to service and excellence. Years later, Maria's unexpected recognition in the Fort Benning Mess Hall continued to influence how military installations approached veteran engagement and historical awareness, with her experience serving as a reminder that significant military achievements could be hidden in plain sight until circumstances revealed their importance. The recruits who had initially dismissed her as just a delivery lady graduated with enhanced understanding of military history and respect for diverse forms of service, carrying forward appreciation for the innovations and sacrifices that had shaped their training while creating opportunities they might otherwise have taken for granted. The mess hall where Maria's identity had been discovered became a symbol of how assumptions about people could be completely wrong, serving as a reminder to military personnel that achievement and excellence could take many forms and appear in unexpected places throughout military and civilian communities. Sometimes revolutionary change comes quietly through service entrances, carried by people whose current roles mask extraordinary past achievements. Sometimes the most important lessons are taught by those who appear to be in supporting roles rather than leadership positions. Sometimes history walks among us unrecognized until circumstances reveal the significance of who we've been overlooking. Maria Elena Vasquez had built a successful civilian career while maintaining her commitment to serving military communities, understanding that leadership could take many forms throughout a lifetime of service. When her pioneering military achievements were finally recognized by young soldiers she had influenced through her innovations, she discovered that true impact transcended rank, uniform, or official recognition. It lived in the improved lives and enhanced opportunities of those who benefited from excellence and dedication. This story was brought to you by Silent Salute. Before we leave you today, here's our question. Have you ever dismissed someone based on their current role only to discover they had accomplished extraordinary things you never imagined? Have you encountered moments when assumptions about people were completely overturned by learning their real backgrounds and achievements? Tell us in the comments about times when you discovered that appearances could be completely misleading. And if you think stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button to support the channel. We'll see you in the next one.